The moon touches the top of the silent temple as a shadow glides across the roof. Too fast to be seen, too precise to be human. A guardian notices too late. The curved blade emerges from nowhere, attached to an invisible chain that cuts through the air like a fatal whisper. He falls, bewildered. What he was hit. In the darkness, the ninja retrieves his weapon, disappearing as if he had never been there. But the scariest part? That was only one of the 10 hidden weapons these assassins carried. Improvised blades, silent tools, and deadly contraptions that never appeared in official scrolls. For centuries, the figure of the ninja has been shrouded in mystery, exaggeration, and fantasy. Films, anime, and popular stories have transformed these silent warriors into almost supernatural shadows, capable of disappearing into thin air or casting magic with their bare hands. But the truth, the documented truth, hidden in scrolls, manuscripts, and rare accounts, is even more fascinating. Ninjas didn't rely on myths or mystical tricks. They relied on engineering, creativity, adaptation, and especially hidden weapons, which could change the course of an entire mission. These assassins didn't carry enormous swords on their backs, nor did they fight like movie heroes. They infiltrated, observed, waited, and only attacked when they were absolutely certain the blow would be fatal. To do this, they used tools so discreet and ingenious that many historians spent decades believing they were inventions of legend. But they weren't. They existed. They were hand-forged by clandestine artisans, adjusted for each mission, and designed for a single purpose: to allow a ninja to kill without being seen, and disappear before anyone noticed. From metal hilts hidden beneath sleeves to blades that transformed into climbing tools, from silent chains capable of severing a throat from a distance to tiny projectiles designed to poison without leaving a trace, each of these weapons revealed not just a combat technique but a mindset. The mindset of the warrior who fights in the shadows. Today we're going to open those hidden files. We're going to examine, one by one, the 10 secret weapons that made ninjas so feared and so misunderstood. This is not a study in fantasy. It's the true story of the tools that made the name ninja resonate in the fear of generals, lords, and spies in feudal Japan. Get ready to see what has never been shown on screen before. The night was completely still when the messenger crossed the north gate of Yamashiro Castle. He came from another province, tired, wounded, but he carried something heavier than his own body. Forbidden information. Messages that should not reach their destination. That was precisely why the ninjas were sent. They were not soldiers, they were not samurai, and they certainly were not honorable guardians of the Bushido Code. They were the silent answer to problems that demanded disappearances, not confrontations. The messenger did not know that he was marked for death. Moving among the trees, a figure advanced with the precision of a hunting animal. It made no sound. It left no footprints. Only the moon, if it could speak, would witness its approach. And at that exact moment, when the messenger dismounted from his horse to drink water, the ninja decided to act. The weapon he wielded looked like just a piece of rope wrapped around his wrist. Small, simple, insignificant, but it was anything but. It was kusari fundo, a short chain with weights at the ends, designed to spin fast enough to break an arm, knock out a guard, or bring down a man without a drop of blood. The ninja spun the metal weight with a smooth, almost elegant motion. The sound was low, but enough to grab the messenger's attention for half a second. Half a second was all the assassin needed. A sharp impact struck the traveler's nape, and the rest was silence. No blade, no piercing, just the calculated precision of an invisible tool. And that was the secret of the ninja's hidden weapons. They didn't attract attention. They didn't shine. They didn't threaten before striking. The same could not be said of the samurai's weapons, which were enormous, polished, and ceremonial. Ninjas carried the opposite, unadorned, dishonorable, but extremely effective weapons. As the man fell, the ninja picked up the metal weight, tucked it into his sleeve, and examined the body. Not out of cruelty, but because it was part of the training. A ninja needed to know if the mission had been completed cleanly. Someone's life or death was always linked to the effectiveness of the tool used. This moment reveals a lot about why these weapons were created. They arose from 3 fundamental needs. Discretion. Nothing should give away the presence of a murderer. Versatility. Each weapon needed to have multiple functions: attacking, distracting, climbing, cutting, blocking, control. The ninja couldn't rely solely on strength. He needed to be completely in control of the situation. And that's why the Kusari Fundo opened this list. It wasn't the most famous weapon, but it was one of the most clever. Small enough to fit in a sleeve, powerful enough to incapacitate a warrior, silent enough not to alert the second target. After hiding the body, the ninja prepared to disappear. But before doing so, he pulled out another weapon. A tiny blade, no bigger than his thumb. One infiltration tanto, it wasn't used for fighting, but for cutting seals, opening scrolls, manipulating doors, tearing ropes, and extracting evidence. It was a tool, not a sword. And this shows once again, the ninja arsenal wasn't built for duels. It was built for specific purposes. Yamashiro Castle would never know what happened that night. The guards would blame bandits, illness, even bad luck. But the truth lay in the shadows, in the invisible weapons that made the name shinobi feared even by those who had never seen one. And this is just the first piece of the puzzle. Because if the Kusari Fundo was the discrete entry point, the next weapons on this list are even more ingenious and far more lethal. Hours before the messenger's death, another castle, nearly 20 kilometers away, was also preparing to sleep. Lanterns extinguished, corridors empty, guards tired. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, except for a small shadow that moved between the tatami mats with an almost impossible precision. The guardian of the south gate believed he was alone when he heard a faint metallic tick behind him. He turned quickly, hand on the hilt of his sword, expecting to find an armed intruder, but there was no one, no picture, no shadow, just silence. The second sound came too quickly. Something scratched his neck like a sharp fingernail, but when he brought his hand to the spot, he found no blood. He felt no cut, nothing, just a sudden chill running down his spine. He never saw what hit him, because the weapon that killed him, it didn't look like a weapon. It was shikomizue, the staff that holds a blade, a sword hidden inside what appeared to be a simple wooden staff. Unlike the katana, full of ceremony, perfect curves, and evident shine, the shikomizue was the opposite. A thin blade, almost without a guard, hidden inside a staff that any traveler could carry without arousing suspicion. To the untrained eye, it was just part of the journey. For a ninja, it was the key to traversing entire cities as an ordinary citizen, until the moment of the strike. The ninja approached the body before it even touched the ground. Calmly, he retrieved the blade, blew away the non-existent blood, and slid it back into the staff. No brand, no proof, no witnesses. Only the invisible trail left by someone who existed and did not exist at the same time. To this day, the shikomizue remains one of the most debated weapons in Japanese history. Some historians say it was used by messengers, others by monks, still others by agents specially trained to cross territories without raising suspicion. But everyone agrees on one thing. If someone carried that staff, you would never know if you were facing a harmless traveler or an assassin with a hidden blade. This weapon demonstrated a clear philosophy of the ninjas. The best weapon is the one the enemy doesn't see. The second best is the one the enemy doesn't recognize. The shikomizue served both functions. As he picked up his staff, the ninja disappeared down the hallway as if it were just another piece of the night. He still had a second target in that fortress, and this time he couldn't use the blade. Because the next weapon on the list, it doesn't cut, it doesn't pierce, it leaves no mark. It simply ensures the target never wakes up again. The lord of the castle woke up with a strange premonition. It was as if the air was too heavy, too still, too silent. He got out of bed, lit a lamp, and felt a chill on the back of his neck. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't fear. It was instinct, the same instinct that had kept him alive through 3 military campaigns. He didn't know it, but a ninja was already inside his room. Not on the ceiling, not behind the screen, but literally within the shadow designed by the furniture in the corner. The weapon chosen that night did not glow, it didn't cut, it wasn't making any noise. It was simple, discreet, and deadly efficient. The fukiya, the blowpipe used to launch small poisoned darts, was one of the oldest and most ingenious tools of the white shadow assassins. His power wasn't in the impact. I was in chemistry that came after. The ninja watched the daimyo for long seconds, waiting for the moment when the lamp would perfectly align his shadow with his own. Shadows were silent doors, and a good shinobi knew how to use them as complete cover. When the target took a deeper breath, suspicious, the ninja brought the fukiya to his lips. No sudden movements, no sound, just a slight puff of air, imperceptible. The dart pierced the darkness like an insect, landing on the daimyo's neck so delicately that he didn't even notice. He merely scratched the spot, curious, unaware of the poison already coursing through his bloodstream, fast, silent, and efficient. The ninja picked up the bamboo tube, disassembled it into 3 parts, and stored the pieces inside his kimono. To any guard, it would just be a pen, a cylinder, a piece of wood, never a weapon. Ninjas were trained to understand that true lethality lies not in strength, but in imperceptibility. The blow that kills isn't the hardest blow, it's the one nobody notices. The daimyo collapsed onto the table seconds later, as if he had fallen asleep. And to a casual observer, that's exactly what it looked like. Sleep. The kind of death that would go unnoticed until the following morning. But the ninja didn't leave immediately. There was something that few people understand about these warriors. They never used just one weapon per mission. They always carried alternatives, redundancies, improvised solutions. If one failed, another became the right choice. That night, his next weapon would be entirely different, because his path would now lead him to narrow, cramped places, full of traps and corridors where distance didn't exist. To do this, he would use a tool that transformed the palm of his hand into a deadly blade. The next chapter reveals the most feared melee weapon among assassins, too small to be seen, too fast to be avoided, and too brutal to be forgotten. The castle was still asleep when the ninja left the daimyo's chamber. Each step was calculated, almost mathematical. He didn't walk, he media the land. Among shadows, tree trunks, and pillars, the shinobi moved as if the building itself breathed with him. But now, the mission had changed in nature. The next part required something that no chain, no dart, and no stick could do. The corridor leading to the record storage room was narrow, guarded on both sides by sentinels who remained almost motionless. The distance between them was too small for long guns. The environment was too quiet for any dry impact. And the second death that same night could not have raised immediate suspicions. It was time to use one of the most cruel weapons ever created by the artisans of shadow. The ninja slid his hand inside his sleeve and touched the cold, smooth, curved object, a short blade attached to a metal ring. As soon as he placed his finger through the ring, the gun snapped perfectly into Yuai, the exact position where it should be, between the bones of the hand, extending like a deadly claw. It was tekokagi, a hidden claw. It wasn't just a blade. It was an extension of the hand, created for striking, blocking, climbing, and silent killing. If used correctly, no cut was too deep to be noticed immediately, just deep enough to incapacitate. The ninja approached the first guard without haste. The blade reflected as little light as possible, polished so as not to indicate movement. When he was close enough to feel the sentry's warmth, he let out a light breath, a natural, almost involuntary human distraction. The guard turned his head, curious. The last thing he saw was an extremely short, tiny, almost insignificant flash. Tekokagi entered under the collarbone with the precision of a doctor and exited without resistance. The guard fell without a sound, as if he had simply fainted. The second guard noticed the peripheral movement, too late. The ninja advanced in a single, swift step, and Tekokagi made another clean, almost surgical cut, precisely in the area that would silence the voice before it could even form a scream. 2 lives extinguished, 2 bodies positioned gently against the wall, as if they were simply sleeping. Nothing but the assassin's own shadow betrayed his presence. The ninja wiped the blade on his sleeve, retrieved it in a gesture that concealed the weapon as quickly as a blink of an eye, and advanced down the narrow corridor. The records repository held information that could change the fate of 3 provinces, and that was precisely why it was full of traps. In that place, no ninja would dare to rely on long guns, poisons, or chains. The next tool was an old one, brutal, necessary, a weapon designed to survive in environments where every wall, every door, and every step could be an enemy. A weapon that didn't just kill, she paved the way. In the next chapter, it appears, the instrument of silent destruction, capable of turning wood, doors, and obstacles into dust with a single precise blow. The corridor leading to the storeroom ended at a reinforced door, thick wood, internal bars, and a latch designed to withstand sword blows. It was a simple but effective defense. Samurai didn't break down doors. They entered with authority. Ninjas, on the other hand, they had no time for ceremonies. The shinobi stopped in front of the entrance, his ear pressed against the wood. No sound. No light splashing from under the crack. No breathing. Perfect. He knelt down slowly, sliding an instrument that looked like a tool, not a weapon, from his belt. It had a short handle, a sharp metal point, and an arrangement of teeth that resembled an animal's claw. It could easily pass for a carpenter's tool, and it was precisely this appearance that made it so dangerous. The recently. Many people are familiar with the rope and hook version used for climbing walls, but few people know about the very short, heavy version. Designed for disassemble wood silently, to pull out beams, move bars, and break structures without the bang a large blade would make. He inserted the tip between the wood and the hinge, pressing just enough to feel the grain move beneath the metal. The wood creaked, softly, almost inaudibly, but to an experienced ninja, that sound was music. It was the sound of boundaries giving way. With a precise twist of his wrist, Kaganawa ripped off the first inner lock. It didn't break. It became misaligned, quiet, almost polite. The second latch fell off minutes later with a small muffled snap. Enough for an average security guard to hear? Maybe. Enough to alert the watchtower? Never. The ninja sighed, not in relief, but in discipline. His training taught him, if you listen to your own work, you did a bad job. He pushed the door, which opened with a sigh. Inside, shelves of parchments, boxes with official seals, border maps and tax lists, political, military, and personal secrets. Things that should never fall into the hands of someone trained to weaponize information. But there was also something unexpected. A shadow where there shouldn't be any shadow at all. The vague curve of a shoulder. The fleeting glint of human eyes. The warehouse was not empty. There was another ninja inside. Not your ally, not its direct rival, but someone with a goal that crossed exactly the same target. That file couldn't reach the next moon. The two did not move for several long seconds. Their breathing was almost imperceptible. The tension, however, was as thick as smoke. The intruder pulled out something small, circular, and extremely thin, difficult to see even in dim light. But the runner's killer recognized him immediately. The Shuriken Hira, the flat, silent, fast, fatal star. If the night had already been silent, now she was about to become mortal. The next chapter delves into the clash of shadows, where movement and breath decide who lives and who falls. The room was too small for two people. Shelves crammed with scrolls created narrow corridors, shadows cast at chaotic angles, and every breath felt like a misstep. The two ninjas, trained to act, not to hesitate, remained motionless, assessing the scene like predators meeting for the first time in the same territory. The intruder was holding between his fingers a Shuriken Hira, the classic star. Plan. Fine. Sharp enough to slice a hair in midair. The ninja in the hallway recognized the subtle glint of the steel, but he also recognized something more dangerous. The intruder was too skilled to waste that first move. A shuriken wasn't just thrown. He was targeted, following a calculated trajectory to ricochet off wood, a column, or a wall, hitting the target at an unpredictable angle. It was a weapon that killed through mathematics, not through brute force. The tension that filled the room wasn't fear, it was calculation. The first move came from the intruder. The arm moved, but not forward, downward. A fake scam, a distraction. The veteran ninja didn't fall into the trap. He took a silent step to the side, hiding half his body behind a shelf. The star cut through the air with an almost imperceptible ching, striking the wood just inches from its neck. It didn't stick. She entered, proof that it was perfectly balanced. Before the intruder could draw another weapon, the veteran acted. He pulled something much smaller, much less conspicuous from his belt. One bow shuriken, the straight dart. It had no blades. It wasn't spinning. It pierced the air like a silent arrow and was deadly at close range. The ninja threw. The intruder dodged. Not entirely. The dart grazed a piece of his sleeve and struck the shelf, scattering ancient scrolls across the floor. The dry sound echoed through the warehouse. They both froze. Not because they were afraid of each other, but because they both heard the same noise next. Steps. Guards. Several. The double intrusion had finally left a trace. The intruder looked at the ninja in the hallway. Their eyes exchanged a silent message. The fight between them no longer mattered. Now, both of them needed to survive. The other one glanced quickly at the file, the object of both their efforts, and disappeared into the shelves like a ghost. The veteran ninja took a deep breath and picked up his bow shuriken from the ground, storing it with the discipline of someone who knows that each weapon is irreplaceable. But now, faced with the approaching steps, he knew he needed something more direct. A weapon capable of taking down multiple opponents at close range. Quick, brutal, unexpected. Something that could transform an empty hand into a destructive force. The next weapon wasn't a blade. It was Iron Fist, too small to be seen, heavy enough to break bones with a single blow. And in the next chapter, he would be put to the test against a room full of men who should never have woken up that night. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway with increasing intensity. 4 guards, maybe 5. The ninja knew that when facing a group in a confined space, any long weapon would become a burden, and any noisy weapon would mean quick death. He slid his hand inside the belt and found the cold, compact object made to disappear in the palm of his hand. The Tetsubishi Ken, the Iron Fist. To the untrained eye, it looked like just a small, irregular metallic block. But as he gripped it firmly, the ninja felt the perfect weight, distributed in such a way that every inch concentrated enough force to break bones. It was a strike that didn't require a blade, just precision. He extinguished the lantern in the room with his thumb, plunging everything into such deep darkness that even the guards themselves would hesitate to enter. It was at that exact moment that the door opened. The first guard crossed the threshold holding a torch. That was a mistake. The light blinded him, and more. It cast its shadow, long and perfect, an invitation for those who lived in darkness. The ninja advanced as if by reflex. The metal fist struck the man's throat with the force of a hammer blow, but without a single audible crack. The guard's breathing turned to absolute silence. He fell before he understood what had hit him. The second guard reacted quickly. He raised his spear. The tip pierced the air, but encountered only shadow. The ninja slid to the side, grabbed the spear shaft, and with a subtle twist of his wrist, used the weight of the Tetsubishi Ken to twist the soldier's arm at an impossible angle. The bone gave way silently, like damp wood cracking. The man fell with a sigh caught in his throat. The 2 remaining guards hesitated. They didn't know what they were facing. A demon, a murderer, a vengeful spirit. In the darkness, all enemies grow in size. All sounds seem closer. All fears have names. One of them tried to retreat, but tripped over a fallen scroll. The ninja took advantage of the imbalance. He jumped, spun, and the Iron Fist struck the exact spot between the shoulder and the neck, a blow that instantly knocked out consciousness. The last guard ran. He was the youngest, the most frightened one, and, unfortunately for him, the most predictable one. The ninja unleashed the Tetsubishi Ken. The metal block flew through the air like a silent meteor, striking the base of the boy's spine. He fell without screaming, without understanding, without seeing. In less than 10 seconds, 4 lives had been lost. The Iron Fist left no noticeable marks. It wasn't bleeding. He didn't report it. It was the perfect weapon for a mission that required absolute silence. But now, the ninja was late. The other shinobi, the intruder, was already far away, taking with him part of the records, or something even more important. There was only one chance to reach him, to use a weapon not designed for killing, but for running between invisible shadows. A weapon as simple as it is ingenious, as silent as it is deadly, just as important as any blade on this list. In the next chapter, the tool that allowed the ninjas to do the impossible appears, to escape before they are even seen. The air inside the corridor was heavy, as if the entire castle were holding its breath. The darkness was not merely the absence of light, it was a living, dense presence that seemed to watch every movement. And the ninja knew that, in that environment, strength and speed were not enough. To reach the intruder, he would need to use one of the most underrated yet fundamental tools in the shinobi arsenal. He removed 3 small objects from his belt that could easily be mistaken for irregular stones. but as he touched them between his fingers, he felt the sharp edges, the precise geometry, the perfect balance. Tetsubishi, the iron hedgehogs. Simple weapons, fatally efficient. Each piece had 4 points. No matter how they fell, one of them always landed face up, ready to pierce bare feet, sandals, light boots, or to delay any pursuit. But that night, the ninja would use the Tetsubishi not Todo escape and yes, Toad Vance. He quickly launched them onto the mat in a formation that only a trained shinobi would know how to see, even in the dark. The pattern created a safe line, an invisible map, a route of movement where only he could tread without injury. It was like turning the entire floor into a trap, except for the spots where her feet would land like petals. And then, he ran. It was no ordinary race. There was no noise. There was no impact from the footsteps. The technique required each step to be smooth, quick, and calculated, as if the ninja were floating above the surface. The speed was so intense that his silhouette became a blur, a shape that crossed the long corridor before the shadows could follow him. The sound of Tetsubishi punching sandals behind him confirmed what he already suspected. Secondary guards, who had come to investigate the commotion, had stepped into the traps. Muffled screams survived for a few moments before being swallowed by the night. He didn't look back. He followed the trail left by the intruder. Almost invisible marks, shifts in dust, small ripples in the tatami mat, details that only someone trained to observe the impossible could notice. The intruder was fast, but not fast enough. Upon reaching the outer hall, he saw him. A shadow crossed the inner garden of the castle, running towards the roof of an abandoned warehouse. But that wasn't what caught his attention. This is what the intruder was carrying. A hardened bamboo cylinder sealed with red wax, the type of container used for military secrets, invasion maps, lists of condemned names. The ninja frowned. That object was not only valuable, he was dangerous, and there was only one way to recover it before it was lost in the night: to use a weapon as old as shinobi training itself, designed to stop an enemy even from a distance. A weapon that didn't cut, it didn't pierce, but prison. The next chapter, the tool that allowed capturing a live target comes into play. Without screams, without blood, without leaving a trace. A weapon as silent as the night itself. The intruder hurried through the inner garden with the haste of someone carrying something that shouldn't be there. With the lights off, the low fog, and the absolute silence, the open space was transformed into a labyrinth of shadows where any wrong step could condemn both, the fleeing thief and the pursuer who hunted him. The ninja knew that feeling. The weight of responsibility throbbed in his chest. Not just the mission, but the certainty that that sealed bamboo cylinder contained something capable of altering alliances, destroying clans, or starting silent wars. He needed to get it back, but he could not kill the bearer. Not yet. For this purpose, there was a weapon designed for something extremely rare in the shinobi arts, to capture without fatally injuring. A weapon that turned distance into an advantage and the target's speed into a weakness. The ninja stopped behind a stone pillar, unwinding a thin, light, flexible chain from his waist. She seemed too fragile to fight, but its appearance concealed its true purpose. The Kyoketsu Shoga, a double blade attached to a long rope or chain, finished with a heavy, perfectly balanced ring. But that night, he wouldn't use the blade. I would wear the ring. With a circular, almost artistic movement, the ninja brought the chain to life, spinning, silently in the air, like an invisible metallic halo. Centrifugal force lifted the ring, which began to cut through the mist like an iron bird. When the intruder jumped to climb the warehouse wall, the chain was thrown. The ring flew in a perfect curve, circling the fugitive's waist. The chain coiled like a snake, first around his waist, then around his arms, and finally binding one of his wrists. The speed of the escape became the trap itself. The intruder fell with the controlled impact, rolling over the rocks as he tried to undo the chain's knots. He couldn't. The ninja pulled forcefully, dragging the man across the ground, incapacitating him without breaking bones, without spilling blood, exactly as the Kyoketsu Shoga had been designed to do. The fight seemed to be over. It seemed so, because when he approached to take the bamboo cylinder from the intruder, something unexpected happened. The man smiled, not a smile of defeat, not a smile of despair, a smile from whom I was expecting that. "You're late," whispered the intruder. And before the ninja could react, a faint glow emerged from the enemy's fist. A tiny blade hidden beneath the bracelet. One last blow, quick, cruel. The ninja dodged, but the blade wasn't the problem. The problem was the poison. Even without penetrating deeply, the contact was enough to stain the skin with a burning sensation that spread like fire under the flesh. There was no time. If it were genuine poisoning, it would have taken minutes, maybe seconds. The only way to survive was to use the next item in the arsenal, the most unlikely, the most overlooked, and perhaps the most essential. A weapon that did not kill the enemy, but it killed the poison. In the next chapter, the item that defined those who lived to fulfill the mission appears, and those who fell into darkness before seeing the dawn. The burning sensation coursed through the ninja's arm like a fiery serpent. The poison had no smell, no color, and no weight, but the body recognized its presence instantly. Muscles tensed, skin felt like it was boiling from the inside, and breathing became shorter and heavier. The intruder, still bound by the Kyoketsu Shoga chain, gave a weak laugh. "Shinobi, you always forget that others also learn to walk in the darkness." The ninja did not answer. The pain was real, but not unbearable, and that was exactly what he expected to feel. A true ninja doesn't trust their own body. Trust in that he carries. He loosened the chain just enough to keep the enemy restrained, and with his free hand, pulled a small cylinder of treated wood from inside the kimono. Too simple to attract attention, too small to be considered important by untrained eyes. But for a shinobi, that was as indispensable as a blade. The doku keshi, the poison neutralizer. It wasn't a miracle potion, it didn't cure any toxins, but it contained an ancient mixture of herbs and salts that neutralized the effects of the most common poisons used by spies and, assassins. Aconitine, curare, yew extracts, and even mixtures of poisonous plants combined with rust are commonly used in hidden blades. He broke the lid with his thumb, pressed the contents against his irritated skin, and rubbed firmly. The burning sensation intensified for a few seconds, then subsided, and finally, it stabilized. The intruder's eyes widened. "Do you have the antidote?" The ninja did not answer, but his silence said it all. Shinobi training wasn't just about killing. It was about survive, resist, persist. Even when one's own body was transformed into a battlefield, the poison had lost its potency. The ninja could still feel his pulse racing, his veins burning, but his mind remained clear, firm as a stone in the rain. Now he could concentrate on what was most important, the sealed bamboo cylinder. Before he could reach it, however, something unexpected happened. The intruder stopped resisting. He stopped breathing deeply. He stopped fighting, and he began to laugh. A low, hoarse, almost happy laugh. "You think you came alone?" he murmured. The ninja took a step back. Something changed in the air. Around the garden, a previously silent presence manifested itself. Movement on the wall, footsteps in the sand, shadows leaping between rooftops. They weren't guards. They were not allies. They were other ninjas. The intruder wasn't stealing that cylinder for himself, but Ford Liver. The inner garden, previously empty, was now fenced in. And those new upstarts carried weapons so rare that even veteran shinobi avoided using them. Curved blades and small fangs on their fingers, silent hooks, long chains that gleamed in the moonlight. The ninja took a deep breath. The fight would not be against a man. It would be against an entire brotherhood, and each of them carried weapons capable of killing before they were even seen. And there was still much more of the hidden arsenal to reveal. The night was far from over. The inner garden, once silent like an abandoned sanctuary, now breathed differently. On every rooftop, on every pillar, at every point where the moon didn't fully reach, there were eyes watching. Tiny, almost invisible reflections. Steel waiting to be used. The newcomers were not guards. They were not mercenaries. And they weren't amateurs. They belonged to something much older. A group that did not obey clans, lords, or daimyo. A group that existed to ensure that certain information never fell into the wrong hands. Or certain hands might never reach the next morning. The veteran ninja recognized the movement pattern. Fluidity. Silent coordination. They were users of like yari, a hidden variant of the short spear, with side blades designed to grab, restrain, and control opponents in confined spaces. But that wasn't their most dangerous weapon. The real risk was what they carried on their backs. Small tubes sealed with black wax, about the size of a closed fist. And the smell? Subtle, sweet, ferrous, black powder. Non-explosive, but incendiary. These ninjas carried hibuki, primitive firearms used not to destroy, but to create smokescreens so dense that they turned any space into a deadly labyrinth. The veteran's breathing slowed, not out of fear, by calculation. The captured intruder had been merely the bait. The real transport was about to happen before his eyes, a clandestine transfer, in a chain of secrets that extended far beyond that mission. The group leader stepped forward, bringing with him the weapon that the ninja most feared facing in open spaces, O Manriki Gusari, the chain of two weights. A weapon that could strike, strangle, break joints, and above all, to control the pace of combat. The veteran ninja knew, if that chain held him even for a single second, the fight would be over. He could not win by force, not even by speed, not even in stealth. They were his equal in that respect. The only way to survive was to use the next item in his arsenal, kept for extreme emergencies. A Siai. Weapon designed not to kill, but for change the entire environment. A weapon that would turn the garden into absolute chaos, leveling the battlefield between one against many. He slid his hand inside his kimono and touched the cold, circular metallic object about the size of an egg. The Metsubushi, the blindness bomb. It was now or never. The enemy ninjas made the first move, and he cast forth the darkness. If you enjoyed delving into the shadows with me, discovering hidden weapons, forgotten techniques, and the secrets that history has tried to conceal, then don't let the night end here. Subscribe to the Blades and Shadows channel. Leave a like to strengthen our brotherhood in the darkness, and comment below where you're watching from. I want to know which part of the world you entered the shadows from today. Your participation helps this project grow, bringing even deeper stories to light, and to keep alive the art of those who fought where the light did not reach. Until the next investigation. And remember, in the shadows, each blade carries a secret.